Degrees of materiality. What does material world mean? What does materiality mean? What does matter mean? Earlier in the commentaries, a definition by Professor Troelsen was quoted. In objectifying the cause of a sensation, that is, in transferring this cause into a definite place in space, we conceive this place as containing something that we call matter or substance. See Volume 1, page 2. Further on he says, the use of the term matter was reserved exclusively for matter that is able to affect our organ of touch more or less directly. See Volume 1, page 6. Modern physics and chemistry have achieved much in the study of the structure and the composition of matter, but they do not limit themselves by a definition of matter like that made by Professor Troelsen, apparently regarding as matter everything that admits to objective study, everything that can be measured and weighed, even indirectly. In studying the structure and composition of matter, these sciences deal with divisions of matter that are so small they can produce no effect on our organs of touch, but are nevertheless recognized as material. In fact, both the old view, that limited the concept of matter too closely, and the new view, which extends it too far, are incorrect. In order to avoid contradiction, indefiniteness, and the confusion of terms, it is therefore necessary to establish the existence of several degrees of materiality. Solid, liquid, and gaseous states of matter, up to a certain degree of rarefaction, that is, states in which matter can be divided into particles. Very rarefied gases, consisting of separate molecules and molecules resolved into component atoms. Radiant energy, light, electricity, etc., that is the electronic or electromagnetic state of matter, electrons with their derivatives, photons not bound into atoms. Certain physicists regard this state as the decomposition of matter, but there are no data that justify their view. It is not known, however, how electrons become combined into atoms, just as it is not known how molecules become combined into cells, and into protoplasm in living or organized matter. It is necessary to keep in view these divisions because without applying them it is impossible to find a way out of the chaos in which the physical sciences find themselves. What do these divisions signify from the standpoint of the above principles of the new model of the universe, and how can the degrees of materiality be defined? Matter of the first kind is three-dimensional, i.e. any part of this matter and any particle can be measured in length, breadth, and height, and exists in time, i.e. in the fourth dimension. Matter of the second and third kinds, i.e. its components, molecules, atoms, and electrons, have no space dimensions in comparison with particles of matter of the first kind, and reach our consciousness only in large masses, only through their time dimensions, the fourth, the fifth and the sixth. In other words, they reach it only by virtue of their motion, and the perception of their motion. Hence only the first degree of matter can be taken as existing in geometrical forms, and in three-dimensional space. Atomic and electronic matter can with every right be regarded as matter belonging not to our, but to another space, for it requires for its description 6 dimensions. Its molecules, atoms, electrons, and photons, if taken by themselves, can with every right be called immaterial. Materiality is divided for us into 3 categories or 3 degrees. The first kind of materiality is the state of matter of which our bodies consist. This matter and any part of it must possess, for us, 3 space dimensions and 1 time dimension. Their 5th and 6th dimensions we cannot perceive. In the materiality of the first kind there is, for us, more space than time. The second and third kinds of materiality are subatomic. The states of molecules, atoms, electrons, and photons, which, for the direct senses, have the 0 dimension in space, and reach our consciousness by virtue of their 3 dimensions of time. In the materiality of the second and third kinds there is, for us, more time than space. The change in the state of matter from solid to liquid, and from liquid to gaseous, concerns molecules only, i.e. the distance between them and their cohesion. But inside the molecules, in all 3 states of matter, the solid, the liquid and the gaseous, everything remains the same, i.e. the proportion of matter and emptiness do not alter. Electrons remain equally far, one from another inside the atoms, and revolve in their orbits in the same way in all states of cohesion of molecules. Changes in the density of matter, i.e. transition from solid state into liquid or a gaseous state, do not reach them, and do not affect them in any way. The world inside the molecule is analogous to the great space in which celestial bodies move. Electrons, atoms, molecules, planets, solar systems, agglomerations of stars, all these are phenomena of the same order. Electrons move in their orbits in the atom just as planets move in the solar system. Electrons are the same celestial bodies as planets, even their velocity is the same as the velocities of planets. In the world of electrons and atoms it is possible to observe all the phenomena that are observed in the astronomical world. There are comets in this world that travel from one system to another, there are shooting stars, there are streams of meteorites, and there are black holes. As above so below. Science seems to have proven the old formula of the Hermetists. Unfortunately, however, it only seems so, for in actual fact, the model of the universe that science builds is too unstable, and can fall to pieces at a single touch. What then links together all these revolving particles or aggregates of matter? Why do the planets of the solar system not fly apart in different directions? Why do they continue to revolve in their orbits around a central luminary? Why do electrons remain linked with one another, thus constituting an atom? Why do they not fly apart? Why does matter not resolve into nothing? Science has always been confronted with these questions in one form or another, and even in our day it is unable to answer them, without introducing two new unknown quantities, attraction or gravitation, and ether or dark matter. Attraction, replies science to the above question, keeps the planets near the sun and binds electrons into one whole. Attraction, that mysterious force, the influence of a larger mass upon a smaller mass. This again raises the question, how can one mass influence another, even a smaller one, when it is at a great distance from it? If we imagine the sun as a large apple, the earth would be a poppy seed at a distance of 12 paces from this apple. How can the apple influence the poppy seed 12 paces from it? They must be linked in some way, for otherwise the influence of one body upon another remains totally incomprehensible, and is in fact impossible. Scientists have tried to find an answer to this problem, by imagining a certain medium through which influence is transmitted, and in which electrons and, possibly, also celestial bodies revolve. All these hypotheses, and also the hypothesis of gravitation, are entirely unnecessary from the point of view of the new model of the universe. Atomic matter makes our consciousness aware of its existence through motion. If the motion inside atoms were to stop, matter would turn into emptiness, into nothing, a black hole or antimatter. The effect of materiality, the impression of mass, is produced by the motion of the minutest particles, which demands time. If we take away time, if we imagine atoms without time, that is, if we imagine the electrons constituting the atom as immovable, then there will be no matter. Motionless small quantities are outside our scale of perception. We perceive not them, but their orbits, or the orbits of their orbits. Celestial space is emptiness for us, and that is precisely what matter would be without time. However, in the case of celestial space, we have learned sooner than we learned in the case of matter, that what we see does not correspond to reality, though science is still far from the right understanding of this reality. Luminous points have turned into worlds moving in space. The universe of flying globes has come into being. But this picture is not the end of the possible understanding of celestial space. If we represent schematically the interrelation of celestial bodies, we shall represent them as disks or points at a great distance from one another. But we know that they are not immovable, we know that they revolve around one another, and we know that they are not points. The moon revolves around the earth revolves around the sun, and the sun in its turn revolves around some other luminary unknown to us, or at any rate moves in a definite direction along a definite line. Consequently, the moon in revolving around the earth, at the same time revolves around the sun, and at the same time moves somewhere together with the sun. The earth in revolving around the sun, at the same time revolves around an unknown center. If we wish to represent graphically the paths of this motion, we shall represent the path of the sun as a line, the path of the earth as a spiral winding around this line, and the path of the moon as a spiral winding around the spiral of the earth. If we wish to represent the path of the whole solar system, we shall have to represent the paths of all the planets and asteroids, as spirals winding round the central line of the Sun. The paths of the planet satellites as spirals round the spirals of the planets. Such a drawing would be very difficult to make. In fact, with asteroids it would be impossible, and it would be still more difficult to construct an exact model from this drawing, particularly if all the interrelations, distances, exact thickness of the spirals etc., were to be strictly observed. See videos depicting a helical model of the solar system, available on YouTube. However, assuming that we were to succeed in building such a model, it would be an exact model of a small particle of matter, but enlarged many times. The same model reduced the required number of times, would appear to us as impenetrable matter, exactly identical with all the matter that surrounds us. Matter, or substances of which our bodies and all the objects surrounding us consist, is built in exactly the same way as the solar system. Only we are incapable of perceiving electrons and atoms as immovable points, but perceive them in the form of complex and entangled traces of their movements, which produce the effect of mass. If we were able to perceive the solar system on a much smaller scale, it would produce on us the effect of matter. There would be no emptiness in the solar system for us, just as there is no emptiness in the matter surrounding us. The emptiness or fullness of space depends entirely upon the dimensions in which we perceive the matter or particles of matter contained in that space. The dimensions in which we perceive this matter depend upon the size of the particles of this matter in comparison with our body, upon the greater or lesser distance separating us from them, and upon our perception of their motion, which depends upon the velocity of their own motion and the rate of our perception, which creates the subjective aspect of the world. All these conditions taken together determine the dimensions in which we perceive various agglomerations of matter. A whole world consisting of several suns, with their surrounding planets and satellites, rushing with terrific velocity through space, but separated from us by colossal distances, is perceived by our senses as an immovable point. The most immeasurably small electrons when moving are transformed into lines, and these lines intertwining among themselves, create for us the impression of mass, i.e. of hard, impenetrable matter of which the three-dimensional bodies around us consist. Matter is created by the fine web made by the traces of the motion of the smallest material points. The study of the principles of this motion is necessary for the understanding of the world, because it is only when we make these principles clear to ourselves that we can form an exact concept of how the web created by the motion of the electrons is woven and thickened. How the whole world of infinite variety of phenomena is constructed from this web, the pattern or the fabric of life as we know it.